It's been a while since last time since there aren't many games in the series that has unique mini-bosses. Twilight Princess has many of them, and ranking them wasn't easy at all. Some can even be argued to not be mini-bosses, but we included the battles that felt unique compared to regular enemies, even if there was little to no real combat. We're TheOwnersOfTriforce, I'm on the one, and this is our Twilight Princess mini-boss ranking. Exploring the areas of Hyrule that was covered in Twilight was exciting. Humans were practically ghosts, and dark creatures and enemies lurked around. In Lake Hylia we faced the Shadowed Cargarok and its rider. A Shadow Bulbul archer calls on a Shadowed Cargarok with a little plant, just like Link has done earlier in the game. As Wolf Link, you fight together with Midna on your back against these two. The Bulbul will shoot fire arrows at you, and every now and then the Shadowed Cargarok will keep a distance before flying in, grab Wolf Link, and toss him to the ground. What Link has to do is to jump at the Cargarok and hang on while biting. When the Cargarok is defeated, only the Shadow Bulbul is left, and attacking him is no harder than fighting a regular Bulbul. The atmosphere is nice, since you are in the Twilight in a pretty waterless lake, and you get to ride the Shadow Cargarok after the fight. But the battle is over very quickly, and someone has to rank last. Like I said, ranking these were very hard, but the Shadow Cargarok and this archer ended up being last. If you're looking for what's possibly the most disgusting mini-boss ever, then look no further than the Lakebed Temple to find the Deku Toad. Just coming into this room through a water pipe to look up at the ceiling to see this gigantic, ugly, disgusting toad is quite experience. To attack, the Deku Toad releases little babies from the eggs that it's carrying on his back. After killing off the babies, the Deku Toad will jump up, and you'll notice a shadow on the ground that quickly shapes up to be the form of the toad. And while the stressful music makes you panic, you have to move away to avoid getting smashed by this monster. While lying on the ground, you have to attack the tongue. It's by no means a bad fight, but we rank it this low based on how disgusting it is. It's fitting to the Lakebed Temple, but there are cooler and better mini-bosses in this game. If we go back to the Twilight and Lake Hylia, man, I guess the mini-bosses in the water areas are the worst in this game. What a weird coincidence. We actually fight another mini-boss while looking for the Tears of Light. Link has gone through this procedure twice earlier in the game, but it never happened that one of the tears was kept by a mini-boss. The Twilight Bloat is, just like the Deku Toad, a very disgusting creature. It's a big insect, and is only visible through the senses of Wolf Link. You fight him on a few platforms out on the water, and it flies around above the water and attacks you with electricity. Just like with the Shadow Cargarok, Wolf Link has to jump at it, grab onto it, and bite away. After doing this 3 times, it'll float on its back at the surface of the water, and Wolf Link can jump onto its stomach and attack the 6 things that are sticking out. 1 super attack and it's defeated. It's somewhat better than the previous 2, since it's a different way to collect a tear, and it's cool that it's only visible through the senses. Not better than to make it number 10 though. Next up is a very familiar creature. This is also someone that people might not count as a mini-boss, but screw it. Skull Kid is on our list. It ranks as low as number 9 because there isn't much of a fight with him, but it ranks above the ones underneath because, come on, it's Skull Kid. And the battle consists of 2 phases, and you face him twice. You're in the Lost Woods, chasing down Skull Kid in the wolf form. While Skull Kid keeps summoning these scary looking puppets, you have to track him down by listening. When you get closer to him, it's easier to hear his trumpet, and when you encounter him, you have to attack him. Then he'll open new paths, and this will keep happening until you come to a circle, where he will switch places by standing on different tree stumps. Here you have to attack him while he's blowing into his instrument, and bam, the fight's over. But that's only when you're gonna find a Master Sword. In the second encounter, you have the option to be in wolf form, but you're not stuck to be. You also have to chase him when you're gonna enter the Temple of Time. And this time, the Lost Woods are dark, and you have to go where you see the light from Skull Kid's lantern. Since he finds himself at places that are harder to reach, Link has to use his bow to attack him. Puppets will continue to attack with infinite waves as Skull Kid calls upon them, and at the end, they will find themselves in another circle where Link has to shoot more arrows to defeat him. The woods lighten up when the battle is over, and Link can now find himself in a place in the ruins of Temple of Time that wasn't reachable before. We really enjoy this part, since you're in Lost Woods, and this time it's something that's believable as a forest, because the Lost Woods in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask aren't exactly as believable with a path in each direction almost all the time. These woods feel more natural, and the remade Lost Woods theme is so beautiful. Both of these chases are very atmospheric and nostalgic, and Skull Kid is pretty cool looking too. In the Forest Temple, you have a mini-boss that isn't really as familiar as Skull Kid, but we really like his role in this dungeon. The mini-boss is called Ook the Baboon, and the fight is really simple. He will jump around with his totem poles and eventually throw his boomerang. When he stands still and has thrown it away, Link has to roll into the pole so that he's out of balance, and the boomerang will hit him and make him fall down. This is when you have to attack his ass. Yeah. So the battle isn't anything special, but what we really like about this monkey is that we already know why we're fighting him. Earlier in the dungeon, he uses his boomerang to cut down a bridge and try to leave one of the monkeys to fall down. We already have a reason to fight him. Another thing is that it turned out that he had been corrupted by some kind of insect, and is actually the leader of the monkeys. As soon as he's back to normal and sees Link, he gets scared and runs away. Even after being scared of Link and being attacked before that, he actually helps out in the fight against Baba. Oog's battle may not be so great, but we love backstories and the role bosses and mini-bosses play in the game, and he really does play a big role inside a Forest Temple. Plus, the music during the battle is pretty sweet and fitting for the occasion. After having enemies like the Dinalfoes and Lizalfoes in the series, Twilight Princess also offered a dinosaur enemy that could fly. The Aerolfoes is a mini-boss in the City in the Sky, and isn't all impressive. The thing that gives this mini-boss some points is the battle. It's very slow as it keeps hovering in the air for a long time, and it's easy to know that you're supposed to use the claw shot on its shield, since it looks just like the other claw shot targets in the game. But when you get it to the ground, they're pretty cool to fight. They actually look cooler on the floor, and you do actually get to fight them. They don't get back into the air as soon as you've slashed them a couple of times, even if they really try to attack you while they're in the air too. Instead, they will stay on the floor for a while and use their shield and sword to have a fight. This part is very fun, because it does create a little variation. And slightly better, they will try to use the big holes in the walls to fly through and try to make a surprise attack. It's a pretty good fight, but we rank this one this low because it becomes more of a regular enemy later in the game, even inside the same dungeon. Zant is one of the villains in the game, and the boss inside the Palace of Twilight, but he also has a couple of hologram versions of himself as the mini-bosses, called Phantom Zant. We like this battle because we fight him twice, with the second fight having stronger enemies than he can summon. He will teleport around the room, teasing you for a bit before he stops to summon a portal that the enemies come out of. He can summon Shadow Dekababas, Shadow Keys, and even Shadow Beasts. This fight can actually last a while, as it takes quite a number of hits, and knowing where he will be open for attacks isn't always easy to figure out. We also like that we got to see more of what Zant was able to before fighting the real him. As mentioned in the characters video, we think Gorons look pretty cool in this game, and Dongoro is no exception. Dongoro is the guardian of the weapon of the hero of the past, in other words, the bow. Without any idea that Link has been led inside the mines, Dongoro does whatever he can do to defeat this human intruder. It's great to fight a Goron as a mini-boss, and in something that's somewhat of a dangerous type of sumo wrestling. Dongoro is freaking huge, and you find yourself on a platform that balances on the surface of lava. What Link has to do is to attack the unarmed parts of Dongoro, mainly his stomach, when he's gonna punch Link. After being attacked enough, he will start rolling towards Link, and with the awesome use of the magnetic effects of the iron boots, Link has to throw him into the lava behind. It's a fun boss, and we like how he acknowledges Link's strength, without knowing about the iron boots of course, and puts his trust into Link to save Darbus, the Goron leader. Come to think of it, this type of battle seems familiar. While going through the Temple of Time, trying to find the other statue that's supposed to be standing on the other side of the door leading to the boss, you come to an end where you see the statue standing up by the glass. But in the center of the room, standing on the Medallion of Light symbol, is the Dark Knight. He is a highly skilled swordsman who is heavily armored and wields a sword and a shield. You're actually in for a real sword battle here. This is a great opportunity to try out all the hidden skills you've learned so far. The back slice is very effective, but you have to be precise when rolling around him, because it's easy to do a 360 around him. He will strike with his sword, perform a shield attack and other things. And the more you hit him, the more armor he'll lose. When his armor is gone, he throws the heavy sword towards you and draws a lighter sword. In this phase, he's quicker with attacking, kicking, and don't get fooled because he dropped his shield, because he can easily block your attacks with his sword. Dark Knight is a badass mini-boss, and very fun to fight. We understand why this is many people's favorite mini-boss in the game, but we only have him on 4th place because he faced many Dark Knights as regular enemies later in the game, and that decreases his mini-boss status. Snowpeak Ruins is a dungeon filled with weaponry and armors all around in different rooms. So what's more frightening and awesome than to fight an armor that actually has a living being inside of it, inside the armory? With one of the 2 armors found in the room standing right behind Link, we all think we know what's coming. But no, that armor gets destroyed by the Dark Hammer who's standing far back in the room, using a ball and chain. This lizard creature is so powerful with the ball and chain that it knocks Link far back if he hits him with it. It's actually really hard to avoid because the room is so narrow, and getting behind him to attack his only weak spot is very troubling, seeing as he swings the ball a big part of the time. It's clear that the use of the claw shot to get around is supposed to be useful, but even that does not help you avoid the ball that easily. Therefore, your best opportunity is to attack after he's thrown the ball towards you. This guy is massive. This battle is pretty unique, and you don't find this kind of enemy elsewhere in the game. It is pretty tough to beat. I always end up forgetting how to beat him, and usually lose all my hearts at least once in the battle. Luckily, I've always had a fairy. He's probably the hardest mini-boss in the game, well, to us anyway, and we think he deserves the number 3 spot. Plus, how often do you actually get the item that the mini-boss was using? Our number 2 is the most important mini-boss in the game. He's someone who follows through the whole game from beginning to end. This is King Bulbul. You face him 4 times throughout the game, and that is in different types of battles and places. He's very important to the story, breaking into Ordon and kidnapping some of the children, ruining your chances to save Prince Valis, blocking your way into the Arbiter's grounds, and having one final showdown inside Harald Castle's walls. The first battle is the first time you really get to try out Twilight Princess's mounted combat, as you can use your sword to slash at King Bulbul and other Bulbulins riding on other Bulbuls in the open Hyrule field, before you face off with King Bulbul on Elden Bridge in an epic encounter. He's easy to defeat, but man, this ending makes you feel like a hero. The next round is when Link escorts Telma, Elia and Valis from Castletown to Kakariko Village, so that Renato can save Valis' life. While escorting this wagon, King Bulbul is back on the Great Bridge of Hylia for another one-on-one. This time, he's got a shield on each side of his body to not let Link use his sword again. This time, the bow's a useful weapon. It only takes 2 arrows, which is a bit disappointing, but the mission does not end there. His minions are doing whatever they can to hinder the wagon in getting there. I mean, they're using freaking cog rocks to drop bombs on your path, and they're trying to set the wagon on fire. The bow is very useful during this whole battle, both against the king and his minions in this other part. The third round is outside the Arbiter's grounds. After fighting your way through the forces of the Bulbulins in the darkness of night, and finding a Bulbul that you can ride on, an unfriendly face comes out of the dark corner of the room, wielding a huge axe, and it's now a battle on foot, axe against sword. This is a really easy battle since he moves very slowly, and it's easy to attack where it's open, which is pretty much everywhere behind his axe. But he's got incredible strength, as he deals out a lot of damage if he hits you with his weapon. He even blasts the Bulbul out his way with ease. After defeating him, he sets the building on fire and shows that he hasn't given up. The fourth encounter happens when you walk onto a stony platform in the castle courtyard, and a barrier appears to surround you, while the big green beast drops down from the sky and actually utters out the words, "I have come to play." The battle is pretty much the same. Maybe he can take more damage than before, and he can also swing his axe sideways. After defeating him, he chooses to hand over his key before riding off, saying, "I follow the strongest side. That is all I have ever known," leaving Midden as surprised for talking. Even though he's got his ass kicked by Link 3 times before this, we like that they showed a good side about him. I don't think anyone expected him to turn out like this. King Bulbul earns the number 2 spot for showing up several times throughout the game, each time at different places, times, and different ways to fight him. He's important to the story and keeps showing up from beginning to end. Another thing is that he doesn't even die when he's defeated. You face him 4 times and he doesn't die. He chose to not fight Link anymore before he rides off to fight another day. That's incredible. And even though he brings so much variation and great memories, there is still one mini-boss we like better than him. As important to the whole game that King Bulbul is, we can't deny that we absolutely love the undeath. You know that. Arbiter's Grounds has a creepy setting with very dark atmosphere, and the dungeon contains a lot of undead enemies. That also counts for its mini-boss. One of the most incredible moments to me in the game is entering this room. It's very dark, there's fog or dust in the air, and all you see is a giant sword stuck to the ground, with threads attached to it. Cutting one of these threads will make the inscriptions on the sword glow red, and the rest of the threads will burn up. Then, the sword will pick itself up and start swinging wildly in the air. A strange, calm and mystical theme will start playing, as the sword will start striking at you. Attacking the sword does nothing, and there's nothing else to attack. What do? You turn into the wolf and start sensing. Suddenly, you see that there's a ghostly appearance holding the sword and attacking you, and the music gets more build-up. When this ghost strikes his sword to the ground, his body becomes vulnerable for physical attacks. After biting him enough, this ghostly appearance will reveal its mortal form, and while the music gets more intense, Link's human form can finally see our number 1 mini-boss, Death Sword. This huge skeleton has one of the coolest appearances any boss has ever had. This devilish skull, black robe, that awesome sword, and all the black smoke that follows him around. It has an amazing build-up and incredible atmosphere, and it's the only dungeon mini-boss that actually requires the wolf form. You fight him as Link the rest of the battle, but he might even turn invisible again after a while. He hovers around the room and you have to shoot him with a bow without targeting, and he'll circulate while getting closer to you to strike you. That's when Link has to strike him instead. While in the air, he can shoot dark energy balls out of his sword. He may not be important to the game, he may not have the best battle, but he has an incredible atmosphere, appearance, setting, and is one of the most mysterious mini-bosses we have ever faced. In addition to all this, he has one of the coolest death scenes we've ever seen, where his whole body turns into hundreds of small bats. We just cannot let him be lower than number 1. Thanks for watching.